Good Saturday evening to you all. I'm Meteorologist Addison Green here at KHOU's Weather Center, where we are based in the Houston metro area in case you are viewing us from outside the United States, maybe across portions of Canada, the Caribbean, or beyond. Well, as we go through this Atlantic tropical update, we're keeping our eyes on two tropical waves that are already being monitored by the National Hurricane Center. That's Invest 95L and 97L. Earlier on, before this day started to wind on down, we started to see Odette becoming a thing of the past, but we still got to talk about that system, as well as one system that will just not go away, and that is Nicholas down across the southeast portion of the United States. So here's the latest on the tropics. The remnants of Nicholas just will not fade away. They've been bringing scattered showers and tropical downpours across several of the southeast states like Alabama and Georgia, as well as Mississippi, but they will start to break down very soon. Odette gone before we even knew it. We had the system break down earlier on today and is now a post-tropical cyclone, which means it's transitioning from a warm core tropical system to a cold core, which you get for systems that are started off outside the tropics. So they usually have frontal boundaries, like a cold front and a warm front. And usually when they are transitioning to a PTC, they are no longer being monitored by the National Hurricane Center and usually don't pose a threat to anybody or anything and get pushed up and towards the northern latitudes of the northern hemisphere. Tropical season continues to march on with those two waves that we are watching, They are making their way out there across the open waters of the Atlantic, which we'll talk about very shortly. Now, the remnants of Nicholas, we see right here, the last spot that was being monitored by the National Hurricane Center had it placed across central to northern sections of Louisiana. But you can see that even though that central portion of the system has stopped being tracked, we can see all that displaced tropical moisture being brought up across from the southeast in towards the Gulf Coast states right there, wrapped around in a counterclockwise fashion, because we still have that motion going on in the atmosphere. And that's why earlier on today in the Houston metro area in southeast Texas, we did get that wraparound moisture to come on down and to give us a few scattered showers and some brief downpours from some isolated thunderstorms. But once we started to lose that daytime heating, we started to see all that activity fade away as it started to move towards the coast and eventually offshore. But while we typically see these systems getting brought up across and towards the northeast and eventually kicked out of the country, this one just got stuck and we don't have any real big steering pattern to kick it out of place. So as we look right here at the water vapor imagery, think of it like an X-ray scan of the atmosphere. We can see where we have moisture moving and drier air as well. Well, the jet stream, that river of air aloft that goes around the planet, helping to steer pressure systems, whether they are low pressure systems, storms, or high pressure systems, favorable weather. We can see right there that it is placed all the way up across and towards the northern portion of the United States. Well, while it's pushed that far north, we have several areas of pressure across the country that just kind of like stuck, and it's kind of like a log in a river that's kind of like on the bank. It's not being taken by the current, so it's just kind of stuck there until we see that current rise and start to dislodge that log and move it. Well, the log right here are these pressure systems, and that river is the jet stream, and we need to see that river dip on down to help to pick up these pressure systems to get them to start to move. But for the time being, with these high pressure systems in place, we see that this low pressure system, that's the remnant circulation of Nicholas, just stuck across the southeast, and it's transporting moisture up from the Gulf of Mexico towards the southeast and the mid-Atlantic states. And meanwhile, it's helping to bring down drier air across the southern plains. So in many portions of Texas and Oklahoma, we've been enjoying some relatively lowered levels of humidity in the atmosphere, which is always a good thing, especially across the central and southern plains, where after going through a very brutal summer, especially August and towards September, we always look for a nice break from the humidity, and every little bit of a drop in humidity goes a long way. Now, in terms of the potential rainfall we may see over the southeast over the next 3 days, since that remnant circulation will eventually fade away, but not quite yet, we're still looking likely to pick up anywhere between about ½ an inch to an additional inch or so, maybe 2 inches in some spots. These little yellow highlighted areas, that's about 3 inches or so that do pop on up across sections of South Carolina, Georgia, as well as on the border of Mississippi and Alabama. But now that we saw Nicholas make landfall last weekend, earlier on, for this work week, Monday to Tuesday, it made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane just south of the Houston metro area. When we look back over this tropical season so far, as well as 2020, we can definitely see that we had a very active coastline right here in terms of tropical systems and their landfalls. we had 14 landfalls, all the way from Hanna down near towards Corpus Christi and Brownsville in Texas. Beta that made a landfall last September, moving on up across the coastline. And of course, we had major hurricanes like Laura and Ida, as well as Zeta, helping to bring around destruction, unfortunately, for many spots across coastal areas of Louisiana. And we even had a few tropical systems and hurricanes impact portions of Florida, although much of the western section of Florida has dodged a lot of tropical activity, but we are still going through the middle of the season, so anything can happen. We can also cross off maybe a few more names on the list right here for the 2021 season. Next two names on the list, since we're watching two tropical waves, would be Peter and Rose. And then after that, Sam, Teresa, Victor, and Wanda. And if we go past this list, we will not go in towards the Greek alphabet like we have done in years past. 2 years past. We'll go in towards a supplemental list of alphabetical names, and we'll see that list with some of those names maybe getting retired. So let's look across the tropics, shall we? We have Odette, which we can see right there is moving on in across the northern sections of the Atlantic Ocean, but we'll show you what's going on with that system since it's gone post-tropical. And we're also keeping our eyes on two areas of concern that both have a high chance of development within the next few days across the central portions of the Atlantic Ocean. First things first, we have Odette right here. It's post-tropical, so last time the National Hurricane Center issued an advisory, that was at 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon Central Time. We had that system with winds sustained at 45 miles per hour and moving at a pretty quick clip towards the east-northeasterly direction around 20 miles per hour or so. But you can see right there, there's a system that looks very unusual. We have the bulk of the convection across the eastern side of the system right there. So definitely wind shears helping to displace the bulk of that tropical convection away from the core, exposing the core, that center of circulation. And whenever you get that happening, you're dealing with a system that's either weakening or struggling to maintain its strength. As we look back at the visible imagery from the GOES satellites up above, we can see right there that big ball of convection that was ahead of that central area of circulation. That is Odette. But also I want to highlight something right here very briefly. Here's the center of circulation. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 little kind of like mini circulations inside the broad circulation that's Odette. So another sign that it's weakening, it can't even get its central core together. It's got 4 areas of little circulations inside itself that you would want to see that all into one spot in order for it to be a strengthening tropical system. But as this system was moving over the colder waters of the North Atlantic, because here's the Jersey Shore, here's the South Shore of New England to put you into perspective, get your bearings straight, it's heading towards those cooler waters of the North Atlantic, and it's impacted by a lot of wind shear as well. Both of those are not good ingredients for any system that wants to survive, whether it's tropical or not tropical, but definitely tropical needs that warm sea surface water, and it's not getting it. So Odette, it's a thing of the past. It'll be moving on up towards Greenland and towards Iceland soon. Tropical wave Invest 95L has winds of 35 miles per hour sustained. Last advisory as of 7 o'clock Central Time shows us that it does have that high chance of development right there for you. And we can certainly see that we have some convection on pretty much one side of the system, but also I start to see some more convection starting to pop on up across the northern side. So it's trying to coalesce itself, trying to bring that circulation wrapping it around. And also, as we look at this imagery right here, we're trying to see if we see any dry air intrusion, dry air trying to punch in towards the core, which would help to kind of cap its strengthening, growth, and development, at least for the time being. I do see a little bit of some dry air trying to come in right there as it's moving in towards a northwesterly direction around 14 miles per hour or so. But if it can survive that little dry air, cut it off, keep the moisture around its central core, and avoid any wind shear up or off, then we'll look at for that system to strengthen and develop. But as we look right here at your ocean heat content, we do see that it's going to be moving in towards some favorable waters. They're going to be trending on the warmer side compared to nearby waters that are trending much colder. And to put it into perspective, remember we were talking about last week, for the past few weeks, in fact, Hurricane Larry. Well, you can see right there, that is its track. That's Hurricane Larry's track. And because of its slow movement and it was a major hurricane for several days, Category 3 and Category 4. It did a lot of draining of that ocean heat content. So when you drain the ocean heat content up at the surface, it's feeding off of it, draining that heat upwards and towards the system. You're going to start to get some cold water, just cold water, I should say, moving on up from the deep waters and uplifting in towards the surface right there. So you're almost getting like a scar of some cold water right there towards the surface of the central portion of the Atlantic. It'll eventually start to warm itself back up, but it will take some time. But certainly 2 weeks is not enough time. So it still has a cold scar right there. But we can see there is that system, Invest 95L. And we can see the various computer plots want to take it towards a west-northwesterly direction in towards areas just north of Puerto Rico, possibly going in towards the Bahamas over there. But either way, it's running into some favorable water, and we'll see if they'll run into some wind shear that may kind of hinder its growth and development. But at least let's take two of those models that we saw, the GFS model in yellow, European model in red. So looking for this time frame right now, both have a closed circulation. So we may start to see from the National Hurricane Center possibility of this being upgraded towards a tropical depression, or if need be, it has sustained winds of 39 plus miles per hour, a tropical storm. It also has to have that closed circulation as well. As we move forward in time, now we're towards Sunday afternoon, 5 o'clock. We have the GFS model still has a closed, tight circulation, while the European model, not quite so much. It has two areas of circulation, and they're definitely not together. So it may run into some wind shear up aloft, according to the European model. As we move forward in towards Monday, then eventually Tuesday, and fast forwarding into Wednesday. Now we're starting to see the European model right there starting to say, yes, this system will get its act together and strengthen, develop, possibly into a strong tropical storm and maybe a hurricane, Category 2 hurricane, possibly even at that point. While the American model, yeah, it does still have it kind of struggling to do so. Maybe interacting with the island nation right there of Hispaniola, shared by Haiti and the Dominican Republic, may cause some hindrance towards its growth and development. But either way, it'll still be making its track towards the west-northwesterly direction. So areas of concern, if you have anybody living in down those ways in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Haiti, Dominican Republic, just maybe let them know, or if you're down there watching this, just so you know, you may have to deal with some tropical elements going forward over the next several days. That's in terms of some rough wave activity, some breezy winds, and maybe a rain band here or there every now and then. But at least you know the system at this present time is not making a straight shot in towards your area. As we move forward in towards next Friday, we see that we have the European model has definitely a very strong tropical system right there across the open waters of the West Atlantic. Meanwhile, the American model, not quite so much. It's kind of a broad area of centralized circulation, and it may struggle to get its act together as it moves across the waters of the Bahamas. And then heading in towards this time frame next week, we see the American model still has not much there, while the European model still has a very, very strong hurricane right there, possibly impacting right there. That's the island nation of Bermuda. So they may get another glancing blow like they did with Larry 2 weeks ago. Let's move forward, shall we? Invest 97L. It has wind sustained of 35 miles per hour. It's moving to the northwest at 10 miles per hour. Both in the next 2 days, the next 5 days, there's a high chance for development of this system as we make our way across the waters of the eastern Atlantic through the central Atlantic. And as we start to go forward in time, we can see that the system, that's various computer model spaghetti plots, do have it traveling towards a northwesterly direction in towards the central portion of the Atlantic. So thankfully, at this present time, it's a fish storm. Not going to be impacting anybody out this way, although we do have the Cabo Verde Islands right there that may get some rough wave activity and some breezy winds, but at least we're not getting a direct shot as the system goes right in towards them. But maybe getting some rain bands pinwheeling around that center of circulation as it tries to get its act together. Now, the story with Invest 97L is that it's going to be running into some wind shear eventually, but that's several days from now. So we're watching two areas of high pressure up aloft, one out there towards the central Atlantic, another one out there across the western portion of Africa. This high pressure system will help to steer 97L up across, according to the GFS model, in towards the waters towards the northwesterly direction. But as I look right here at the 250 millibar levels, this is the jet stream level at around 34,000 feet or so, the same altitude you find a commercial jetliner cruising around. We see a little bit of a trough right here digging down, possibly courtesy of an area of low pressure up aloft, moving down in towards the central Atlantic, moving towards eventually towards the east. it will run into some wind shear right there moving in that direction, and we'll see if this trough will try and pick it up and swing it towards the northeast, or if it'll just make a glancing blow but still open the door for it to travel to the northwest. But either way, we have this high pressure system that's kind of strengthened and grown up across the West Atlantic. Look at those winds it's running into. They're all coming in downstream out of a northwesterly direction. Where is this system going? Towards the northwest. So it's running head on into those strong wind levels up aloft, and that's where we may see it kind of like meander right there across the central portions of the Atlantic as we move forward in towards Tuesday afternoon. Heading forward into Thursday morning, you can still see it has not moved all that much, and it's still running in towards those headwinds, in which case that will certainly do some damage in terms of its potential for growth and development. So we may see a system that struggles to get its act together as it moves across those open waters. Another factor that may inhibit its growth and development, Saharan dust. We're going to be having a little dust plume getting kicked off the African continent right there, and this is what will have that system eventually running on through. If it can survive that and the wind shear, it goes into some more favorable waters right there, but we're also going to be seeing it running into slightly cooler waters as it moves away from towards the equatorial areas. So yeah, does not look good for Invest 97L. So here's some final thoughts. While both systems are looking to develop soon to possibly depressions or storms, they will run into some issues for further development. Both right now are not a threat to the United States, Canada, as well as Central America, although Invest 95L may kick up some wave activity up across the North Caribbean islands like the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and in towards Hispaniola that's shared by Haiti and Dominican Republic. The Atlantic Basin in its entirety, though, looks to remain in a state conducive for supporting other open waves to come on in across the African continent, and then we may be seeing them possibly develop into tropical depressions, storms, and therefore after that, hurricanes. We are going through the peak of the season as we make our way through mid to end September, so we may still see some activity pop up anywhere across the Atlantic Basin, from the Gulf of Mexico towards the central portions of the Caribbean, towards the Central Atlantic, heck, even off the coastal areas of the Southeast, like we did see with Odette, but thankfully that system was short-lived and for the most part just kicked up some rough waves across the Northeast down towards the Mid-Atlantic states. Have any questions, thoughts, or concerns? Feel free to reach out on social media. Here are my social media handles on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. We'll have another video coming your way tomorrow morning. Meteorologist Tim Panjagis will have that for you, and I'll have another one for you Sunday evening before the day is done. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.